I think this has been such a difficult time for practitioners. There's been so many burdens during the pandemic. These are people working in a highly complex and highly pressured environment with quite an unforgiving institutional culture. So, as the task team or the BATE, we have really been focusing a lot on the emotional well being of practitioners. And when the lockdown started in the beginning of the pandemic, we actually hosted weekly virtual check ins for city officials across the different metros. And it gave people a chance to just pause and reflect about what was going on around them. And we found there was a big appetite for engaging in this way. So then from July last year, we started a program called Healing Fields, which is premised on the idea that as South Africans, we have never really taken the time to heal our wounds. So for practitioners working in government and in the city, how are we meant to build a happy and healthy future if ourselves we are not taking the time to heal? So this time has been exciting, I think, as well as being incredibly daunting and pressured to carve out that time for reflection and learning, which is not something that we're very good at. So it's been energizing to see how much people need this and need to connect at a much deeper level and at a very human level with each other. But apart from that, I think it's also been exciting to see how quickly action can take place in a time of crisis. And I think there have been so many wins for government during this time, and really good thinking and progressive solutions to some of the key issues that we have been facing.
What has the pandemic brought to the fore with regards to the built environment?
I would argue that the built environment has been the major factor that has highlighted and exposed some of the gaps in our society. And I think it has largely been issues of the built environment that determines, for example, how safe one is able to be during a pandemic. So access to sanitation, uncrowded living arrangements, safe transport to get to work are the major factors that ensure one's ability to guard against the dangers of the virus. And many people, often privileged people, have suggested that this time has been a leveler, and that's often the word that is used to indicate that in the face of this pandemic, we're somehow all equal, that in lockdown, we're all facing the same challenges together. But I would really disagree with this and actually argue the opposite, that the pandemic has shone a blinding light on the stark inequalities that we deal with, and specifically those in the built environment. And like any disaster, the ability for people to mitigate against the risks is dependent on so many different factors. And I think specifically in this pandemic, it has come down to the very basics in service delivery. So, for example, access to running water and dignified housing. And I think what many people have been arguing is that we have been in crisis since long before the pandemic. And how is it that there are still settlements without sanitation? That should have been treated as a crisis long before 2020. But it has somehow only taken the pandemic to shake people into action. And we saw the very rapid delivery of sanitation infrastructure in the early days of the pandemic, proving that it is possible. So I think there are so many things that we can learn during this time about the fact that the state is capable when it wants to be, but we cannot keep waiting for a crisis to respond to the very basic rights that people have.